Okay, you can begin.
Okay, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today we'll be looking at power and influence based on the textbook findings, the leadership experience, 4th edition, chapter 12. We are group 9, which team members consist of myself, Naomi Bramble, Nadira Ramlakan, and Nicola Haven. So I'll be going over the overview of all the main topics that we will be focusing on, which is transformational and charismatic leadership, power, influence, and leadership, sources of leader power in organization, increasing power through political activity, tactics for a certain leader influence, and the conclusion. So now I will begin with transformational and charismatic leadership. So what is transformational leadership? Transformational leadership is defined by its capacity to drive profound change in both individuals and the organization as a whole. Transformational leaders lead shifts in vision, strategy, and culture while fostering innovation in products and technologies. Rather than relying on rules, directions, or incentives to manage specific transactions, they emphasize intangible qualities like vision, shared values, and ideas to build relationships, create shared meaning, and unite followers in the process of change. This approach is grounded by the leader's personal values, beliefs, and qualities rather than transactional exchange. What are the positive impacts and traits of transformational leadership? According to the Leadership Experience textbook, research supports research supports the positive impact of transformational leadership on follower development and performance. Studies found that these leadership behaviors can be learned through traits like agreeableness, emotional stability, and emotional intelligence may enhance a leader's ability to exhibit transformational leadership. By understanding emotions and building networks of positive relationships, transformational leaders inspire and sustain meaningful change. So, what are the key characteristics of transformational leaders? Visionary thinking and purposeful change. Finding a vision for the organization that is noticeably better than the current one and inspiring others to share it may be the transformational leader's most important task. The vision is what motivates people to take action and serve as the foundation for the other transformational leadership facets that we just covered. Only when individuals have a clear vision of the organization future and a sense of purpose can change take place. Transformation is impossible without vision. Develop leaders and encourage problem awareness. Followers become leaders through transformational leadership. Transformational leaders inspire individuals to exceed initial expectation by highlighting the significance of change goals and outcomes. They encourage followers to move beyond their personal interests in favor of advancing the organization mission. These leaders earn admiration, foster trust, and create a desire among followers to identify with them. However, transformational leadership goes beyond personal allegiance, focusing instead on instilling a belief in the necessity of change and a willingness to make personal sacrifices for a greater purpose. Enhance followers' needs and empower organizational change. Transformational leadership addresses the progression of followers' needs, moving from basic physical requirements such as safety and security to higher level psychological needs like self-esteem and self-actualization, while ensuring that fundamental needs are met through fair wages, safe environments, and other provisions. Transformational leaders also focus on fostering individual growth and development. They lead by example and assign tasks that not only fulfill immediate necessities, but also uplift followers' capabilities, aligning them with the organization mission. Through this approach, transformational leaders empower followers to enact meaningful change within the organization. Inspire followers to prioritize the greater good. Transformational leaders inspire individuals to exceed expectations by emphasizing the importance of change goals and outcomes, encouraging them to prioritize the organization mission over personal interests. These leaders earn admiration, trust, and a strong desire among followers to identify with them. However, transformational leadership goes beyond personal loyalty, fostering a belief in the necessity of change and motivating followers to make personal sacrifices for a greater cause. And here we will look at an example of a transformational leader. Steve Jobs at Apple was a transformational leader who motivated employees to innovate and push technological boundaries. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple as CEO in 1997, he exhibited transformational leadership by making a pivotal decision that steered the company away from bankruptcy, including a controversial yet financial stabilizing partnership with rival Microsoft. Throughout his leadership, Jobs inspired employees to embrace creativity and push the boundaries of technology, fostering a culture of innovation that revitalized the company. So now it is question time. So what is the primary focus of transformational leadership? Is it A, maintaining organizational stability, B, driving profound change in individuals and organizations, C, enforcing strict adherence to rules, or D, maximizing financial profit? Anybody can answer that? Well, they can answer, I won't bite all you.
Is it D?
D, you say D. Anybody else want to counteract?
I would say A.
Somebody say A, somebody say B. Any other question? Answer? B? Okay. And yes, the answer for anybody who said B, it is the correct answer, driving profound change in individuals and organizations. And the explanation for that is transformational leaders emphasize vision, innovation, and shared values to inspire meaningful change rather than focusing on stability or rigid rules. What is transactional leadership? Transactional leadership operates as an exchange process between leaders and followers, where leaders identify followers' needs and explain how those needs will be fulfilled in return for achieving specific objectives or completing assigned tasks. In this approach, followers are rewarded for their performance, while leaders benefit from the successful completion of goals. So what are the strengths and limitations of transactional leadership? Focusing on the present, transactional leaders excel in maintaining organizational stability and ensuring smooth, efficient operations. Their strengths lie in traditional management functions like planning and budgeting, with an emphasis on the impersonal aspect of job performance. This leadership style can effectively clarify expectations, boost followers' confidence, and improve morale and productivity by addressing immediate needs. However, transactional leadership prioritizes adherence to established rules and procedures, which help maintain stability but does not drive change. While transactional skills are essential for all leaders, the growing need for adaptability and innovation in today's organization often requires leaders to adopt other approaches alongside transactional leadership. What are the key characteristics of transactional leaders? Task-oriented. A task-oriented leader prioritizes output, task execution, quality, production, and other non-relational factors that are given less attention. Since overuse of task-oriented leadership impairs employees' engagement, long-term productivity, and employee retention, it must be balanced. Performance-based rewards. Performance-based rewards in a transactional leadership style entail managers using bonuses, promotions, acknowledgement, and other incentives to encourage staff members to meet targets and expectations with repercussions such as warning or disciplinary measures for non-compliance. Corrective actions. Corrective measures are applied as a systematic method to adjust departures from predetermined objectives and expectations in transactional leadership, strengthening a system of incentives and penalties to guarantee adherence to performance standards. Now we will look at an example of a transactional leader. Jeff Bezos emphasized a culture of metrics during Amazon's early years, focusing on measurable performance to drive efficiency and innovation. This approach involved rewarding efficiency and addressing inefficiencies to encourage continuous improvement. Now we have a next question based on those slides. Which of the following best describe transactional leadership? Is it A, it focuses on innovation and radical change? B, it rewards followers based on performance? C, it ignores rules and focuses on personal vision? Or D, it prioritizes emotional connection over tasks? Which one of the answers do you think best describe a transactional leader?
B.
B. Anybody else want to counteract that answer? No, everybody have the same answer also.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is correct. It rewards followers based on performance. And the explanation for that is transactional leadership operates as an exchange process where followers receive rewards or consequences based on their performance. And now we will dive into charismatic leadership. What is charismatic leadership? Charismatic leadership possesses the unique ability to inspire and motivate others to achieve beyond their usual capabilities, often overcoming challenges and making personal sacrifices. These leaders create a deep emotional connection with others by appealing to both their hearts and minds. They often speak with passion, demonstrating a personal commitment to their mission, and are perceived as individuals who persevere against significant odds. Charismatic leaders frequently rise to prominence in times of crisis, whether in society or organizations, as their strong and inspiring personalities provide reassurance and elevate stress for their followers and alleviate stress for their followers. Sorry. So what are the key characteristics of charismatic leaders? Likableness. Share perspective and an idealized vision make the leader likable and an honorable hero worthy of identification and imitation. Trustworthiness. Passionate advocacy demonstrated through incurring great personal risk and cost enhances the leader's trustworthiness. Relation to status quo. Charismatic leaders create an atmosphere of change rather than trying to maintain the status quo. Future goals. They articulate an idealized vision that is highly discrepant from the status quo as opposed to limited goals. Articulation. Strong and inspirational articulation of vision and motivation to lead distinguished charismatic leaders from others who show weak articulation. Competence. Charismatic leaders use unconventional means to transcend the existing order, whereas non-charismatic leaders rely on available means within the framework of the existing order. Behavior. Their actions are unconventional and counter-normative, rather than conventional and conforming to norms. Influence. They transcend formal authority of position by relying on personal power, which is rooted in expertise, respect, and admiration instead of position and rewards. Example of a charismatic leader. Elon Musk exemplifies charismatic leadership through his ability to inspire employees and fans with ambitious goals. His visionary thinking, enthusiasm for innovation, and personal magnetism draw widespread attention and support. This unique combination motivates team and supporters to rally behind his transformative ideas and pursue extraordinary achievements. Charisma is a double-edged sword. Charisma can be both a blessing and a curse. Charisma has shaped history for better or worse. Leaders like Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy, and Mahatma Gandhi inspire progress, while figures like Adolf Hitler, Charles Mason, and Idi Amin use it for manipulation and destruction. Charisma itself isn't inherently good or bad. It is the intent and impact that determine whether it is a blessing or a curse. So what are the potential risks of charismatic leaders? Charismatic leaders is used for self-serving purposes rather than the collective good. Manipulation and exploitation. Charismatic leaders can use their influence to deceive followers and serve their own interests rather than those of the organization or society. Emotional influence over rational judgment. Because charisma is rooted in emotional appeal rather than logic, it can lead followers to make decisions based on feelings rather than objective analysis. Lack of accountability and oversight. Personalized charismatic leaders often prioritize their own needs over those of the organization, leading to unchecked authority and potential long-term harm. Blind loyalty and idealization. Followers may become overly devoted, dismissing over opposing viewpoints and failing to critically assess the leader's action. Instability and risk in leadership. Charismatic leaders who operate based on personal ambition rather than collective well-being can create instability and uncertainty within organizations. Now, question time. Which of the following is a risk associated with charismatic leadership? Is it A, it always leads to successful leadership? B, it can result in manipulation or exploitation? C, it strictly follows organizational policies? Or D, it discourages emotional connection with followers? Which one of the B? Anybody else want to come? Or D? Anybody else? Okay, and whoever said B, it is the correct answer. It can result in manipulation and exploitation. Explanation: charismatic leaders, when self-serving, can manipulate followers by appealing to emotions rather than logic, leading to unethical decision-making. And now we reach section 2, which is power, influence, and leadership. So what is power? Power is the capacity of one individual or division within an organization to influence others to achieve desired results, known as power. To achieve the intended results for those in positions of authority, it is possible to influence other members of the organization. Through the process of influence and politics, potential power is realized. Although the phrase influence and power are sometimes used interchangeably, they have a different meaning. What do leaders use power to do? Leaders use power to lead groups of people towards goals, resolve conflicts, and influence decision making. Now, what are the 5 types of leaders? Legitimate power. The authority derived from a formal position inside an organization is known as the legitimate power. For instance, most employees are aware that they must obey their supervisor's instructions about work-related tasks once they have been chosen for the position. Because they believe the source of authority to be legitimate, subordinates obey. Everyone in a formal leadership role has certain rights, obligations, and privileges. Followers acknowledge that formal leaders have the right to establish objectives, make choices, and oversee operations. The majority of North Americans acknowledge that appointed leaders have a right to guide an organization. Reward power. The ability to reward others is the source of this type of power. Appointed leaders, for instance, can be eligible for official rewards like raises in salaries or promotions. Additionally, companies distribute enormous sums of money down from their top executives. Leaders have authority over the allocation of resources. Leaders provide the material and financial means for lower level followers to carry out their duties. Reward powerful leaders can utilize incentives to change the behavior of their followers. Coercive power. Coercive power is power rewards antithesis. It alludes to the authority to impose punishment or suggest it. Having the authority to fire or demote employees, reprimand them, or revoke pay raises gives supervisors coercive power. For instance, a sales manager can use coercion to reprimand a salesman who performs below expectations, write a negative letter to his file, and harm his chances of getting a raise. The antithesis of reward and legitimate power is coercive power. Expert power. A leader's great knowledge or expertise in duties carried out by followers is referred to as expert power. Supervisory level leaders frequently have production process experience, which helps them advance. However, because of the technical expertise of their subordinates, top management may lack expert power. To get the results they want, experts might influence choices and reveal or conceal specialized information. Referent power. One kind of leadership impacts that arises from a leader's personality traits is referent power, which demands the identification, respect, and adoration of followers. It is the most noticeable in charismatic leadership, where the leader has a choice relationship with followers and uses referent or expert authority extensively. Leaders are significantly impacted by this power. Example of this kind of power. Barack Obama gained power through legitimacy as a US president, expertise, policy knowledge, and referent power, his ability to inspire people. Now, question time. Which type of power comes from an official position within an organization? Is it A, expert power, B, legitimate power, C, coercive power, or D, referent power?
Is it B?
B? Anybody else want to counteract that question? Answer? Or everybody going with that?
B.
So, D? Anybody else? Okay. So the person that answered B is correct, legitimate power. And the explanation for that answer is legitimate power is derived from a leader's formal authority within the organization, making their decisions and commands respected. And now Nadira will take you over to sources of leader power in organizations.
Good evening again, everyone. Can you just confirm everyone can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so before I step into this section, I would like to have a thought bubble moment with the class. So can everyone think of someone in your job or community who holds significant influence without having an official leadership title? In other words, they're not a boss, they're not a supervisor, they're not a manager. So if you get that person in your head, what makes them so important? And feel free to just unmute and share the class. I'll give you all a few seconds.
I could say in a place I used to work, it had
Mhm.
it had an accountant. She was she was more like a mediator because she didn't have any position, but anytime anyone would have problems, people would go to her and she would handle the situation as so well. And everything would be good in like less than an hour.
Great, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Just out of curiosity, when you say problems, in terms of the operation itself, like daily task, or is it more sociable problems?
It would be both actually. If you have a problem
Okay.
with anything in the system, she would direct it to someone that knows what to do in that particular setting. Or if anybody just going through something, you could go
Mhm.
to her.
Okay. Okay, interesting take. Okay. Um, so the point I want to bring across, who was the person that just spoke? Sakura? Am I saying your name correct?
Yeah, Selena,
Snacks.
Sakura, Snags,
Yes.
whatever.
Snacks. Okay, I'll use snacks. So the point I want to bring across by asking that question, and thank you, Selena, for answering, is that the most influential individuals often are not the ones with formal authority titles. So I would like to also share my experience. I recall not working, sorry, working with a colleague, and she's also my friend, in my last job, which was in a law firm. She was incredible at solving any type of problem. She always stepped up in the moments of uncertainty. And despite not being a manager or having any sort of high position, she had a deep understanding of how everything operated. And she consistently guided the team through challenges. She really had that ability to troubleshoot, connect team, offer solutions. It really made her indispensable. So can you move on to the next slide? Oh, actually, no, sorry. You did already. My apologies. Okay, so considering our thought bubble moment, we can conclude that leadership in organizations does not solely come from personal traits or official titles. Instead, the strategic contingencies theory suggests that a leader's influence is tied to their role in managing key challenges and impact organizational success. In other words, power is situational, meaning that leaders gain influence based on their ability to address critical tasks, uncertainties, and dependencies rather than just their identity or formal authority. So, this means that the most influential leaders aren't always at the top of hierarchies. It is also those who play a vital functional role in the organization's operation and problem solving processes. Next slide. Great. So, In this section, I will be speaking about these 4 factors. Can you go on to the next slide? First, how power shifts in organizations. Leadership power in organizations often stems from interdepartmental dependency, where one department relies heavily on another for resources, expert, or support. This dynamic creates a power shift as the department providing critical resources tends to hold more influence than the one relying on them. So, for example, I want everyone to visualize in your mind a flowchart. Think of materials, information, or processes flowing in one direction between departments. Leaders in the receiving department usually have less power than those in the providing department. On the screen, we highlighted a real-world example from a cigarette factory near Paris. So at first thought, when you think about a factory producing cigarettes, you might envision a straightforward process: production, packaging, distribution, and then sales, right? It seems logical that the production department would hold the most power in such a structure. However, this example challenges that assumption and reveals how interdepartmental dependency reshapes power dynamics. So in this factory, production is a routine automated process. On the other hand, the maintenance department holds critical expertise in repairing and maintaining the complex machinery used in production. And these tasks are not just technical. Fixing machinery can be unpredictable and require years of experience. In other words, it requires expertise. So in this example, when the assembly line faces breakdowns, the production department becomes dependent on the maintenance department to get everything back on track. As a result, the leaders in the maintenance department have the power to call the shots on the machine repairs and to keep operations running smoothly. Next slide. Right, so now we move on to another major source of leadership power: control over information. It's the power of managing knowledge. So essentially, this occurs when leaders influence decisions based on what information is gathered, how it's interpreted, and how it's shared. Those who manage the flow of information can strategically shape perceptions, influence stakeholders, and advance their own objectives. So while top executives usually have access to the most information, lower level leaders or employees can gain power if they obtain and control essential information that decision makers rely on. Next slide. Right, so let's dive into this little story of Jay Sidhu. I don't know if you all may recognize him, but he's an immigrant from India who steered the sovereign Bancorp to remarkable heights as chairman and CEO from 1989 to 2006. Under his leadership, this bank embarked on an extraordinary transformation, growing from an IPO, which is initial public offering, valued at $12 million, becoming the 17th largest banking institution in the US with a market capitalization of $12 billion. So he did his work, but how did he do this? A key factor was his strategy of information control. So over the course of 15 years, Sidhu orchestrated 27 acquisitions, reshaping the bank into a major regional powerhouse. Take his final deal for an example. Sidhu strategically structured negotiations to diminish the influence of investors who sought greater control over the company. By carefully managing what information was shared and when it was shared, he safeguarded his vision and his authority. Also, insiders recount that Sidhu had a knack for briefing the board at the 11th hour, presenting information in a way that would make it challenging to counter his objectives. This tactic allowed him to push his plans forward with minimal resistance. His ability to manage the narrative and control access to critical detail demonstrates how information control can be one of the most powerful tools in a leadership's arsenal. Sidhu's stories is also a compelling reminder that leadership is not just about charisma or decision making. It's about shaping perspectives and strategically navigating organizational dynamics. Can you go on to the next slide? So let's explore the concept of organizational centrality. So this is a factor that reflects a leader's or a department's role in the primary activity of an organization. Centrality matters because it directly ties power to the contribution a department or an individual makes to the organization's success. One way to measure centrality is by examining how much work of a leader's department affects the final output of the organization. So we can consider company like Intel, where maintaining technical superiority is crucial. For those who may not know who Intel is, it's a technological company that manufactures looks like desktops, computers, microchips, that sort of thing. And at Intel, engineers hold significant power due to their central role in driving the company's innovation and technological edge. But if we shift our focus to Procter and Gamble or Kimberly-Clark, both of which are companies that produce personal healthcare products like paper towels and Kleenex and diapers and Huggies. It's consumables you guys know in the grocery. The emphasis is not about engineering as it was in Intel. It's going to be on marketing. So in these organizations, like Kimberly-Clark, the marketers take a center stage, holding more power because their work directly impacts the company's ability to connect with consumers and drive sales. So, in other words, it's all about aligning with the organization's key priorities. Another example I'd want to cover is at the University of Illinois. The departments that generate the most resources, such as large research grants, hold the most power. Why? Well, this is because grants don't just fund groundbreaking research. They also provide significant overhead payments to administration, which in turn makes these departments vital to the university's operational success. So what these examples essentially show us is that centrality is a key determinant of influence and power in any organization, since leaders and departments gain more authority when they play a crucial role in the organization's missions and outcomes. Can you go on to the next slide? All right, so let's go on to the challenges of coping with uncertainty, which is essentially leadership power in complex environments. So as we all know, the environment can change swiftly. It can bring complexity and unpredictability for leaders. In times of uncertainty, leaders often find themselves with little information on the best course of action. But those who excel at navigating these challenges gain influence and power by providing clarity and solutions. So let's take market research personnel, in a company as an example. Their ability to accurately predict changes in product demand reduces uncertainty, making them indispensable to the organization. By addressing critical uncertainties, they gain influence as they guide the organization's decisions in a volatile marketplace. Another example comes from industrial relations leaders. Their role in managing uncertainties created by labor unions, like negotiations or workforce disruptions, that increases their power significantly as well within an organization. Also, the healthcare industry provides another compelling scenario where strategic issues and uncertainties evolve. Can you go on to the next slide? So considering that, I would like to discuss this example between HCA, which is the Hospital Corporation of America. HCA is actually the largest hospital owner in the US, and this case is also against Aetna, a major insurance company. So what does this have to do with coping with uncertainty? So how did HCA use power to address uncertainty? Like other hospitals, HCA once struggled against insurers like Aetna who dictated contract terms, they forced hospitals to accept lower reimbursements, and they restricted price increases. However, as HCA expanded its market share in countries like Denver and Houston, HCA gained the leverage to push back against Aetna. HCA was able to do this through their legal department. If you have a company, having a legal department is crucial. So, and we'll see why. Their legal team played a critical role in managing uncertainty through mergers and acquisitions. By doing this, HCA strengthened its position, enabling them to demand better contract terms from insurers like Aetna. Even today, their legal department in HCA remains a powerful force as it would in other companies. Right, so this leads me to the end of section 3. To recap, power in leadership is not just about formal titles or personal traits. It's about it's about how leaders manage dependencies, control information, how they maintain centrality, and there's a fourth factor that I just spoke about. Can anyone tell me what's the fourth factor? And it wasn't listening to me. Hello.
What she said?
I asked what's the fourth factor of how. Again, I'm so sorry. I think I got bumped off there. Okay, never mind about my question. I was just asking what's the fourth source of leader power in organizations. It was just cope with uncertainty. Let me move on to section 4, increasing power through political activity. All right, so can you go on to the next slide? Thank you. Visibility and recognition. So leadership power isn't just about doing the work. It's about making sure others see and value what you do. If your contributions go unnoticed, they won't enhance your influence. Leaders can boost their power by joining committees or taking on tough projects that highlight their skills. And this kind of visibility builds a reputation for competence and influence. Now, at its core, gaining and using power often involves politics. I know when you hear politics, you might just think of red against yellow, but politics in this context refers to strategies leaders use to highlight their contributions and align themselves with key stakeholders. Can you go on to the next slide? Right, so politics in power and political skill and leadership. So politics and leadership is about acquiring, developing, and using power to achieve goals, especially when there's uncertainty or disagreements. Skilled leaders align their actions with the needs of key stakeholders, reducing resistance and achieving their objectives. A great leader understands others' goals and uses that understanding to influence effectively. So let's take Russell True as an example. He served as the chief operating officer of the FAA, where he oversaw air traffic control services and led modernization efforts. True also held executive roles at JetBlue Airways, focusing on operational improvements and efficiency. But despite these successes, his lack of political acumen created significant roadblocks. So, for instance, while pushing cost saving measures such as facility closures, he encountered strong congressional resistance from lawmakers because they were trying to protect their jobs in their districts. So, this highlights an important lesson. Leadership isn't just about having great plans or driving efficiency. It's also about navigating the political landscape that comes with it. Next slide. Right, so now we move on to organizational politics and political behavior. Organizations frequently rely on politics to shape government decisions, helping to reduce uncertainty and achieve favorable outcomes. Lobbying serves as a key example, influencing policies like telemarketing regulations or affirmative action guidelines. Within organizations, political behavior can have a both positive and negative effect. On the positive side, it can address conflicts or uncertainties that formal rules and authority cannot resolve. However, when politics is misused through manipulation and dishonesty, it can erode trust and harm relationships. Ultimately, the impact of politics depends on how it is applied. So, next slide. How to gain power. So, let's list some ways how to gain power. So, there are practical ways to build power as a leader. First, taking on responsibilities like tough projects, like what I said before. This will help you connect with influential people and strengthen your reputation. The second thing you can do is impression management. This helps shape how others see you. So tactics like name dropping, flattery, projecting confidence can really build an image of competence and authority. When used sincerely, these strategies can really enhance a leader's influence and credibility. Next slide. Right, caution with politics, a downside. So while political strategies are powerful, they can backfire if they seem insincere or arrogant. These risks trust and damages relationships. To use politics effectively, leaders must maintain credibility and integrity. A leader who sticks to their values inspires confidence and fosters teamwork. Next slide. So continuing with caution of politics, there is the political acumen and ethics in it. So being politically smart means using power in a way that respects ethical standards and organizational values. Leaders must think about the long-term impact of their actions, making sure that strategies contribute positively to the organizational goals. Excuse me. So this approach strengthens personal influence while also supporting the broader team and culture. Next slide. All right, so I'm almost near to section four's end, but before I pass you on to Nicola, let's just talk about this guy on the screen. His name is Steve Harrison. He's a prominent figure in the world of publicity and book marketing. He is well known for his expertise in helping authors, experts, and entrepreneurs share their messages effectively through media appearances, speaking engagements, and strategic marketing. So if you're in business and or if you love to read, and well, is the type of books you read, business books and stuff, you'll probably know this guy. So he provides an excellent example of impression management. So at the age of 50, as you can see here, he looks quite old. Harrison worried younger colleagues in his industry because they would see him as outdated. So to counter this, he modernized his image, staying up to date with business trends and engaging in youthful activities like running. He even collected electric guitars. So by staying current and signaling adaptability, Harrison maintained credibility and he showed that he was ready to handle a fast changing environment despite his age. Next slide. Okay, so now Nicola can take over section 5.
Hi, good day, everyone. I'll be covering tactics for asserting leader influence. So let's get into it. Next slide. Why should we insert leader influence? The need to assert leader influence arises from the fundamental rule: influence plays in effective leadership. Leadership is not simply about holding a position of authority. This is about inspiring, guiding others towards shared goals and outcomes. Next slide, please. There's 7 key principles for asserting influence. 1, rational persuasion. 2, making people like you. reciprocity, developing allies, ask for what you want, the principle of scarcity, and lastly, formal authority. Authority. Last slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so rational persuasion. Rational persuasion is when someone tries to convince you using facts, data, and clear logical reasons. Instead of saying things like, all right, don't worry about it, trust me process, or just trust me, right? They would give you evidence on why this method works and why we should do this action, or why this action doesn't make sense to do. What we would use this for is like, let me say that somebody wants to change something in a company, right? They would go do their research, get their data on why this method is better or why this product is better in the company, and then they would present it. Next slide, please. Right, the power of liking. So you ever notice that you are more inclined to do favors or help someone you like rather than someone you don't like? Well, that is the power of liking. The power of liking simply means that people are more inclined to help you as a leader if you're just generally a likable person. So this how to become a likable person. Well, you can start showing care for your teammates. You could like compliment them, give them the recognition they deserve. You could start by building simple friendships so that they could have some level of familiarity with you. And in short, people really like to listen to people or really want to help someone they like. Next slide. The rule of reciprocity. So what this means is that if you scratch my back, I scratch your back. So if I help you, that means that when I ask for a favor or when someone asks you a favor, that means you're more inclined to help them because like, oh, this person already helped me, so like it kind of weird if I don't help them now. So this simply means that it doesn't necessarily have to be with help. It could be simple things that you share in time where you're giving support to somebody, all in the name of building a relationship, which would bring us into our next slide, developing allies. So have we all heard the saying that have no I in team or you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? But for me, what really got us was that I can't do everything for myself. So yes, you could be the most competent person on the planet, but you could only do so much by yourself. So what you want to do is that develop allies or have people you can rely on because there are going to be days when you can't get everything done, right? And having these people here to help you could be detrimental to completing a project or just simply getting an important task done. So you could develop your allies in a couple of ways. You could network with them. So that would mean like going out, spending time, help them with their concerns and problems, and even explaining their problems if you could offer any advice. And also just sharing perspectives on what fields or what you think could work in. Next slide, please. Right. Asking for what you want. Sometimes, like, people like to dance around. So, example, like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Like, that's just a dance around to what you really want. So, just have a simple way, which is direct way, and ask for what you want. So, leaders who speak up about what their ideas and goals or changes they want to make, they want, like, they'll be more likely to seek because they're clear about it. They know what they want, and they're asking for what they want, right? Even if others don't fully agree, they might go along with it if they don't have a better option because somebody has a plan and somebody gave a clear outcome. Good leaders aren't afraid to take risks or stand up for what they believe in. Being bold and clear is a big part of being influential. Next slide. Okay, principle of scarcity. People usually want things more when they seem rare or hard to get. So I'm not sure if y'all play any games where you have to pull for something like you give your currency or premium currency and you have to pull for a certain unit or you have to get this player, right? Because they have better stats or they're harder to come by, like is in a seasonal aspect. It's the same thing with leadership on teams, right? Leaders can use this by showing how their ideas or offers are special limited. So that I say like, hey, I can help you, but it's only from this time, uh, this time to this time, or like, ooh, I am available, but I'm very busy on this day. So if this could work for you, then we can get to it, right? So most people pay attention to the time you offer the time frame, like, oh, this person busy, or this person have a lot going on. Or like this person. So if the more benefit, it has it's more for a time aspect. So like let's say you're on a crunch. This helps in this aspect because like, okay, so we have to work as a piece and then we have to work with everybody else in a piece. If it feels rare, people will care. Next slide. And lastly, formal authority. Being a leader or manager means you have official power. But using it well takes more than just giving orders. The best leaders are trusted, honest, and know what they're talking about. People are more likely to follow someone who is credible and fair, not just someone with a fancy titles. Great leaders who also have used other influence skills like rational persuasion, liking, and others use this to make their former power even stronger. In the end, people follow people, not just positions. Okay, before we go on to the last slide for our presentation, which is ethical considerations, I just want to talk here. I just want to ask a question. So let me say that the head of department wants to change the teaching methods brought across teachers in Costa Rica, right? So he would do this. He would do this in this way. He researched different methods. He gathered data from his school and the results it produced from classes, example, the failure rates and the pass rates, as well as he looked at other schools using the method he wants to implement and he compares the information. So he thoroughly researched the teaching method he wants to implement in his teaching department. My question to you is, which persuasion method did he use, will he use, and why? All right. So because he did so much research, I think it would be best for him to use irrational persuasion because he already has all this data and people respond really well to numbers and seeing comparisons. I'm not sure if you will keep up with the news or social media, but there was a political party member, instead of playing the usual slander games which we play, which is like, oh, you do this and you do this, is this fault for this happening? He showed data and some people were really impressed by it. Then I have another scenario I want to run across, right? This is more of a personal scenario. So let me say that I have a project due date coming up, and a leader wants to ask his teammates to stay a little bit later, right? Just so he can finish the project. How would he go about this? Or how would you go about this? For me, I would spend time with the members or with my teammates and listen to them and see, okay, can we do? Why are you working like this? And then this is gonna sound weird, but it's gonna sound manipulative at first. But hear me out. I would offer them praise. I would acknowledge the work they've done, and I would show a genuine interest in their character and well-being. So in the end, this is for me to become a likable character, which, when asking for a favor of inconvenience, would be the best option. Okay. Last but not least, let's go on to our final slide. Leaders must be aware of the ethical, and responsibilities of having power and take care to using their power to help rather than harm others. Ethical leaders use their power to serve organizations' goals, respect the rights of individuals and groups, and strive to be fair in their dealings with others. Leaders should focus building long-term productive relationships that can achieve goals that and benefit the entire organization. All right, now we are at the conclusion of our presentation. Chapter 12 of Leadership and Experience by Richard DAFT examines leadership, power, and influence. How various forms of power shape organizational outcomes. In conclusion, chapter underscores the effective leadership that goes beyond authority, focusing on ethical and strategic influence. Leaders who grasp power dynamics and apply them wisely foster trust, collaboration, and long-term success, while misuse can lead to manipulation and ethical concerns, reinforcing the need for responsible leadership. All right, everyone, that's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening to what we had today.